Hi, welcome to the Provo City Library podcast. My name is Erica Hill and I'm the Community Relations Manager.
I'm Carla Gordon and I am the Library Director.
And we are here with Cindy Gagon, board member, library user extraordinaire.
Thank you.
So fantastic.
It's so great to be here. This is on my bucket list of things to do. So thank you for helping my dreams come true.
We're dream makers.
You are.
Dream makers. And you're really honestly one of our favorite people.
That is true.
I just want you to know.
We were it sounds like, oh, this is just like very polite chit chat, but legitimately, Cindy, okay, full disclosure, Cindy also used to work here at the library.
That's true.
And you were like my favorite receptionist we've had. I've been here for 11 years. And she's so great. Cindy's so great. So you have had a lot of roles in your life, some of them directly related to the library, some of them not quite so. So we thought we'd talk to you today about how your library use has changed throughout your life. Being a mother or a kid or a grandmother or a library employee or a board member, just sort of how has your perspective changed over time? How has your use changed over time? Give people insight into a life of library use.
That's wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity. I don't want to take a lot of time, but I'm just going to hit the highlights of my life at the library, or the lack thereof. When I was a young girl, my hometown didn't have a public library. We had a school library. So during the school year, I was able to access the school library, but in the summertime, we were either left to our own devices or we went to the bookmobile, which stopped about once or twice a month. And the problem with that was that I was never there at the right time, and I always got the books that nobody else wanted.
Oh.
My list was, I never got to cross any of the books off my list because they were never available. But I learned to adapt, and I learned to love the books that were available to me. And I found out a lot about myself while I was going through that process. And I think part of that was that I don't read like I presume everyone else reads. Everyone else I know can finish a book in 10 seconds, and it takes me 2 weeks, sometimes 3. So I'm so grateful the library has the 3-week policy that the 21 days to get me through. And I found out that I am more of a comprehensive reader than I am a speed reader. If I'm forced to read quickly, I don't get anything out of the book. I'm too worried about the speed and how fast I have to read to get through it. If I read a book and I read a sentence in the book that says, and the sky was cerulean blue, everyone else is moving on to the next sentence and I'm stuck on the color cerulean. What color is that? Is it light blue? Is it dark blue? Is it cloudy blue? Is it bright blue? So I get really hung up on that, and I sometimes read with a dictionary just so that I can make sure that I understand what I'm reading. But it sticks with me and I can comprehend it a little bit. With my advanced age, I am getting a little bit worse at...
I wasn't going to say it.
Thank you for letting me be the guy. I guess I just feel like I don't retain things as well as I did just naturally, but I still love a good book, and I just dive deep when I go.
That's fantastic.
So when I got to high school, we pooled our resources, and the town opened up an old building that had been abandoned, and we started our own library. And it didn't have a lot in it, but I read one book from that library that I just loved, and it was called The Stained Glass Summer. And I cannot for the life of me find another copy, so I may be a little mixed up on it, but that book was so good. Ooh. It had a little mystery, it had a little romance. It was an awesome tween book, and that's right where I was, so that's a book that I remember from that era. When I got married and moved to Provo, they had a lovely library. At least I thought it was lovely. It was the Carnegie Library.
Oh, right. You moved to Provo
many moons ago.
So long ago.
So many moons, the 1980s ago. And
well, that's not that old.
No, but it feels kind of like it. When you say the Carnegie Library, though, seems... I still have my original library card. It was red.
Red.
And it was it was typed. My name was typed on with like a typewriter.
Maybe we should bring that.
You should on there.
You should take a picture of it. Maybe we should like make a vintage this was the old library card design. Yeah. You know, with all our library card
through the ages. Yeah, it was fun. But I was newly married. I had some time on my hands, and that gave me something to look forward to. And that's when I decided I was going to read every Newbery book that had been written since its inception in 1922 or something like that.
There's one about a pigeon.
Yes. Gayneck. Or something like that.
It is called Gayneck.
So I started reading all of them, and to this day I have kept up on that, and I read not only the Newbery winners, but sometimes I read the honors. And I did not know this, but back in the day they compiled a book with all of the winning speeches.
Oh.
So I got to read some of the speeches from my favorite authors.
You were in Jean's reading group for Newbery?
No.
When he was on the committee?
No.
Oh, you should have been.
I should have been, man.
Jean.
Missed opportunity. It's fine.
That's a former director. It's fine.
So
then
you read all the Newberys.
I
completely derailed us.
Okay.
When I was a young mom, I brought my kids to the library, and they all had their own card. I insisted upon it, even though I don't think the librarians really wanted them to have their very own card because it kind of spreads the love too far. But I needed that. I needed them to feel that in their hand and get excited when they walked through the door. And we would read to our kids every night. And our favorite series of books was The Three Investigators series. I can't remember the name of the guy who wrote them, but Alfred Hitchcock does a little intro in them. And it was like Hardy Boys, but a little more edgy.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we had a good time with those. I read all of the Little House on the Prairie books after the kids would go to bed. I read, some of my favorite authors were Virginia Sorensen. She wrote Miracles on Maple Hill. I loved Carolyn Keene. I loved all of those books that just sucked me in, and now I am so into mystery, murder mysteries, little true crime. I don't get scared unless somebody comes up behind me while I have my headphones in.
Right.
Then I jump pretty darn high. As a library employee, I was like a kid in a candy shop because I could go around. I have my little notebook in my pocket. I would make a list when I would shelve the books as a page when I first started here.
Oh, I forgot that you started as a page.
Yes. Well, it was kind of out of necessity. My family needed me to go back to work, and I had no self-confidence in what I could do at all. So I went to the safest place I knew, and that was the library. And luckily, I passed the Dewey Decimal test and got in.
We do a test.
Yeah, there is a test, and I don't know that I could pass it now, but I studied really hard and I passed. And I lasted on that for about 3 months until my legs just gave out. That's a good workout.
I think people don't quite appreciate until you're doing it. Every once in a while I'll go down and help with something and I'll be like, whew, that's a lot of squats and lunges. It's just a lot of bending down and over. It's
reaching up, bending
pages,
down.
That's a physical job.
And not just that, but it's like nearly mindless, but not quite. Because if you really zone out, especially if you're doing like Dewey Decimal, like the nonfiction stuff, it's so easy to misshelve something. If like you have to read 6 numbers, and that sounds so easy, but
retain like different, like a bunch of different numbers, and remember what you're looking for as you look at all the other numbers.
But it totally matters, because I did not think that we were going to just sermonize for a moment about how great our pages are.
Right.
But paging is a really hard job, because if something is misshelved,
you can't find it.
You can't find it.
No.
And it could be lost. I mean, like I think a couple times a week, because sometimes people in their well-meaning intents are like, oh, I pulled this off, but I don't really need it to go back. Yeah. Like we have to do shelf checks to go and see where you have to read.
It's a big deal.
Things. Yeah.
Funny story. So we had at the time that I started, we also had a young man who was just out of high school. He was so darling and so funny. And he hated the romance section. And so there were times when on our sneaky moments, we would have a card that needed to be shelved, and we would say, you need to go do this. This is your card. And he would look down at it and he would go, ugh. And then he'd go do it. I would always go out in a few minutes and take it over so he didn't have to actually do it. But he was so sweet. He would just be like, ugh, and then he'd go and do it. Even though he had to go like this, like he was
dedicated.
shelving.
Dedicated people.
Felt uncomfortable with some
a
of those
little
book
uncomfortable,
covers,
but so that's when that was probably at the peak of my reading because I had access to so much stuff.
It turns out that Cindy didn't actually shelve any books.
No.
It just straight from the cart, like, and this is coming home with me.
Yeah, shelving was secondary, so I never really had to worry about getting it in the right place because it just always
It was just in your trunk.
The right place was my bag.
Yeah, I didn't like shelving picture books. They were the worst.
They're just so tiny.
They're just too little.
And they're kind of tight on those shelves. Squirrely around. Yeah.
Yes. So after I was a page, I came up and helped out in the administrative office. So it was Cindy and Jean, and that was fun. I had a good time here. And it still gave me access. Plus I got to go and meet everybody. And my favorite part about that job was I cracked the librarian code, which is kind of hard because librarians can be introverts.
That's true.
And so when I would walk around the library and do my little walkabout, I would make sure that I said hi to everybody. And it was a win if they said hi back. So if they didn't say hi back, I would come around again until I had everybody nailed and I was able to get everybody to say hi to me. So that was the best part about working here as a secretary.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Was that at the time when there were 3 Carlas here too?
Yes.
That's when I started, and there were actually 3 Cindys. Cindy, and then Cindy in circulation.
Yes,
And
that's
then we
right.
And then 3 Carlas that were all managers.
It was
And
too
2
much.
Sharons.
Fun times.
Too much. You just
Though-
wait them out. The others left.
When I first started here, if I didn't know somebody's name, if I guessed Cindy, Carla, or Sharon, I had a 60% chance of being right.
That is true.
I didn't have to learn 9 names. I had to learn.
Fit names.
Yeah.
But then you left us.
Then I left you and went elsewhere. But I have always kept my library card, and I've always been a friend of the library. And then during that time, it was much easier for me to do audiobooks. So Libby became my best friend.
She's a good friend.
And she never lets me down except for when I have to wait a really long time. But when that happens and I just can't wait, my patience runs thin, then I do Audible. So I am never, ever without something to read. And the library and the programs. Let's talk about the programs for a minute. As a grandma, oh my goodness, I love the programming. We come to the fairy tea. We sometimes do the attic exhibits. It used to be called Big Guy, Little Guy, Space Academy,
Superhero Academy.
We've done all kinds of things. I love the Children's Book Festival.
It's tomorrow.
I know. So exciting. And I actually gave the book Watercress to my son for Christmas this year.
Oh, fantastic.
So as an adult, I give my kids, they're all adults, but I give them a new book every year for Christmas. And that started because Gene told me that's what he does. And that sounded like such a cool thing. Now I'm thinking it was a mistake because I have to start
hard.
now. Yeah. Christmas
I tried
is
to do that
soon. Yeah.
for a while, and then when I had extended family, like my siblings and nieces and nephews, and it's just a lot, and you have to think through what people want or what they've read or what they're in.
What I should do is check out a book from the library for each of them. And then they can,
That would save you a lot of
Please
money.
return this in 3 weeks.
yeah, and you get 3 weeks to read this book and report to me
Just give them a
about.
little card with 3 titles you think they would like, because then one of the 3 they're gonna like, and it's a little bit less pressure. They have it at the library.
That's a good idea. I could promote. You could help. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I'll think on that for a while. But yeah, so we appreciate the library even more now than I think I ever did as a young mom because there are so many things now at the library to do. I go for walks with my friend along the Provo River Trail, and we read the book while we're going because you have stories in the park. And there's just so many things that I can attribute to the success of my kids because they learned to read because we went to the library and because they're well read, they are successful people. It just they go together. And that's what a library is. It's a place for people to feel safe and to feel well read.
And then You became a board member.
And then I became a board member.
How has that been?
That's been so fun because I feel like I can contribute from the other side. I can give back something. And it's actually one of the best gigs I've ever done. And I will feel so bad when it's over, but it has been a wild ride. And I feel like the decisions that we're making are going to be a little more intense than they've been in the past, because I think the literary world is heating up a little bit. There's some controversy just within the consortium of books where how many times can you check this book out before you have to renew and pay the money again? And also what's literally on the shelves. I know that that's become a big hot topic. And I want to make sure that I contribute fairly. So I've been doing some research on that, and I read news articles and things that might help me be able to handle that the best I can when it comes along. So.
Yeah, and you know this, but just for our audience, like the roles of the library board, they have 3 main responsibilities. So library board members hire and fire the director, which they were kind enough to hire me recently.
Absolutely.
So that was great. They're in charge of all of our policies. So when we update policies, they're the ones that approve those and help us with that. They are in charge of our budget, so they have to approve our budget and make sure that we are spending money where and how we should. But they also come in as a representative of the community. So if you know a board member, that's a great way to express some opinions and let us know. You can always come and tell us how you're feeling. But there's also like having members of the community be part of the decision makers for the library is so valuable, and we really appreciate the effort that goes into coming to board meetings, and they all report on the things that they like about the library, and if they're hearing anything out in the community about what we could do better or things that people have liked. We love it.
Plus, there's usually baked goods.
There are baked goods.
Well,
But that was new with the new director. That was not a thing before the new director. Let's make that clear.
I do try to bring something tasty.
Thank you. No pressure. I also just wanted to put a plug in for the book club sets. Oh. I belong to a book club, and I've been we've been going since 2005.
Oh, that is as long as my marriage.
Right?
That's a marriage of a book club.
And we even kept it going through COVID. We met on Zoom, even though not all of us knew how to do Zoom, but we were patient and we figured it out. And I just want to give a shout out to my book group. They are the best. We call ourselves the Book Mavens. Look it up.
Nice.
And we just enjoy the library so much because you keep adding new titles. And so we're never just always reading old classics. We can read some of the new titles that have come out. And that makes us feel really up and coming.
What's your book right now?
My book right now, well, we just met last night. So we just finished the book Becoming by Michelle Obama.
Yeah. It's a good one.
It was 19 hours to listen to.
It's
so I can
long.
imagine it would have taken me 25 years to read. and right now we just started reading Anne of Green Gables.
Oh, that's
so we kind of, we're all over the place, but that's the beauty of a book club, is that you get to read so many different genres. And we just have the greatest time together, and we too have treats. So
excellent.
But I've always said books and food don't mix. So we eat and then we put the food away and then we get out the books. So
the library employees, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're
welcome for that.
Yes. Very good. Okay, do we have anything else we want to ask Cindy?
I don't think so. I love hearing your journey.
Thank you.
Everybody else has
my
but
heart-riveting journey.
But it really is like the library, we want to have something for everyone. But what you need changes. And I have people come and they tell me that they love the library and they always spend so much time in the library, and then I look up and they don't have a library card anymore. But that's usually because they've moved on to a different phase in life. And that doesn't mean they stop using or needing the library or it stops influencing their lives in different ways. But it's just that at different times you need different things. Sometimes you need the online, I just need something.
Yeah.
And sometimes I need a place to bring my children. Like there's just a lot of different. We try to do all of those things. And I like how you have illustrated in your life how it just changes.
You've done well.
Well, great.
You've done well. Can I tell you about my favorite author?
Yes, please.
My favorite author, it will make you laugh
Okay.
because he was an old guy when I met him. He was very old. His name is Richard Peck.
I was going to guess that you were going to talk about Richard Peck.
And he is the Brad Pitt of the literary world for me. He really is. He is just so up there. And he dressed so nicely. I mean, he wore a 3-piece suit with a lovely tie that I approved of. And he was so personable and he was so well spoken. I came to his author event. He signed a little bell. I had him ring a bell for me because I used to have one sitting on my
Did you take that?
desk.
You
I
took
took that
bell.
with me. Ding! I had Karen Cushman. I had Lois Lowry. I had Jamie, the guy who wrote.
Ford?
Yeah, Jamie Ford. I had all of these bells that I took home with me with where they had written, and it was kind of. It was a little weird when I said, "Can you ring my bell?" But we got over it, and everything was fine. It was comfortable then, and we broke in the ice. But that was like my star. You know, I was so taken with him and all of those author visits. So I appreciate that too, and I know that's a big expense for them to come. But to put people in touch with them was so thrilling to me. I felt like I was meeting a superstar. So
It's so fun to meet the authors. They don't travel like they used to.
Yeah,
but like
I
the
think
other
that's true.
day when I went to a library conference, I just signed up for a random event that had like authors there. And as they talked about their book, there's something about hearing an author talk about their own work that is just completely fascinating. And you get a whole other insight into it. So if you have those opportunities, just even if it's a podcast, listening to them talk about their book, like it's fun.
Yeah.
There's something about it.
I'm trying to think about who, because I've used to run the author events, and so I've met just a whole lot. I think that one of the most impactful and the thing that changed the way that I used their books was definitely meeting Kevin Henkes, who writes all like the mouse books and everything. He was funny. Here we're just talking about authors. I don't like what time are we? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This podcast is as long as it is. And anyway, he was really actually quite hard to logistically get here. I don't remember if you were working here at the time. And we kept being like, who's this guy that like doesn't get back to us ever? Like we'd send out the paperwork and it would take like 2 weeks to get it back. And in this time of like, you just scan it and email it, and then you sign it and scan it and email it back. No, we realized, and so we thought that it was just kind of this like, oh, I can't be bothered with. We actually met him. He's the like kindest, gentlest soul, and he doesn't have an email. Maybe he does now, but in 2014, he didn't have an email address, and so because he was like, I just have to stay in a certain headspace, and like so many things crowd in, and I just don't want that. And so like anytime we sent him a bit of paperwork, we'd send it to his agent, and his agent would mail it to him, and then he would sign it and mail it back.
Old school.
And then she would scan it and email it to us. But he was, again, just the kindest, most gentle person. And to hear him talk about children and the ways that they relate with one another, I'm like, now I just need to read all of his books, and they're lovely. And he wrote the nicest thank you letter. And I was pregnant at the time, and I was like his book opener, open. And people were just bringing in like suitcases of books because other people had realized that he was amazing before I did. And like he found out I was pregnant, and he was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. You're going to do it. I don't know. He was just like the nicest person. And so now like I give a mouse book to at least a niece or nephew or a child every year. Like, well, which one haven't I purchased yet?
Authors, they're fun.
They're great.
They're really fun.
They're great. Okay, last thing.
Okay.
What are you reading right now other than Anne of Green Gables?
Okay, right now
Or
I'm
what did you
reading
finish?
a book called Eagle Drums. And I cannot pronounce the lady's first name, but her last name is Hopson.
Okay.
And she is an indigenous people. It's up in a tribe in I want to say Canada. And it's so cool. It's about this, it's like a story that relates to the people, a feast that they have. So it's a traditional story written by someone who is of that native tribe, and it is amazing. I'm loving it. I don't really love fantasy books. That's not really my favorite genre, but I really like folktales, and this one is a really good, gives a good description of what happened to them in that life. And I'm cold, I'm warm, I'm feeling all the feels with this book.
That's a good writer.
Fantastic.
You go.
Me?
'Cause-
Oh, which one am I?
Oh, we both have one on our list.
I know,
So we're gonna see who
claims
who's gonna
it.
claim it first.
You read so many more books than me.
Go for it.
Okay. I'm taking it. Carla was like, I'm going to talk about
It's
this.
fine.
And I was like, oh, wait, I just finished. The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Katherine Arden. Katherine Arden wrote The Bear and the Nightingale.
Yes, I love that.
She is also lovely.
She was delightful.
Yeah, she's fantastic, fun to meet. She kind of writes all over the place, like, because she's got a middle grade series. She had a picture book just come out.
Oh, wow.
And then she got The Bear and the Nightingale series.
Yep.
So this one is some siblings in World War I, and they're from Canada, but fighting in Belgium. Well, she's a nurse. At the beginning of the book, she has been injured, and so she's back in Nova Scotia, and then her brother is in Belgium. And she receives his belongings, but his death is not confirmed. And she kind of gets this, and there's a little bit of like supernatural stuff.
Okay.
I mean, it's very like, okay, there's these three old women, and she never says they're like the fates, but there's sort of like Greek mythology happening. Like these three old women, and she has a vision. She decides to go and look for her brother, and yeah, there's some kind of
Definitely questy, like.
Okay.
definitely like Orpheus and Eurydice kind of, except siblings, not lovers. And it's not weird. It's just there's brother and sister.
Okay, good.
But yeah, it's haunting is a word that gets thrown around.
Really good.
It was really good.
It's really good.
Okay.
The Warm Hands of Ghosts.
It's on my list.
It was very good.
World War I.
Also, like, what a brutal war. Just the worst.
How long ago did we do the last podcast? Because I might do a different one than what I was planning on. Because we do the women? Have we talked about?
No, we have not talked about the women.
That is on my list too.
Oh my goodness.
Kristin Hannah?
Kristin Hannah. Like, Kristin Hannah's amazing. Everybody loved The Nightingale. That's not my favorite of hers. I love The Four Winds the most. But the women, I know. But every time I tell somebody, they're like, yeah, I just read The Women. I'm like, and did you sob like a baby? And everybody's like, yeah, we did. Because it talks about women nurses in Vietnam. Yes. And it is amazing and so brutal. War is brutal, but at that time when they were fighting and at home they were not getting support, but they didn't really realize that. So when they would come home, just what they had to go through, and then to be a woman on top of that. So she would try to get help for veterans, and they'd be like, well, there's no women in Vietnam. And she's like, well, I was there.
Wow.
And so just relationships and people, like, it was, her stuff is so good.
It's so good. It's so like beautifully wrecked is how it leaves
That's a
you.
good description.
You know, we were doing outreach at like an old folks home, and one of the ladies there, I mentioned, because I think I just read The Four Winds, or we might have had The Nightingale in a cart, and she was like, Kristin Hannah, her books are awful. And I was like,
What? Difference of opinion?
How so? And she was like, they are so sad. And I was like, yeah.
They're real.
The best ones are though.
Yeah,
you know, they tug at your heartstrings.
And I
make you feel.
Yeah.
And see a different part. It's a part of history that I think, it's a little mashy, like you see that influence in there, but less of the comedy and more of the just like people doing things that you just can't even imagine.
The older I get, the weirder and weirder it is that they set a sitcom during the Vietnam War. How hilarious. What a hilarious premise.
That is kind of weird.
So anyway, on that note, Cindy, thank you so much for being here and for being who you are.
Thank you for having me. It's been so fun.
Yeah. And we'll see you next time.